Recording this video Tuesday, 12th of March 2013, so about 2:33 p.m. Chicago time. Just getting this out before the close of the day. Well, it wasn't a huge kind of sell-off today. Kind of made some progress, but then we kind of closed back up in the 40s, 46s. At the moment, we've got about 1.2 million contracts traded, looking for some kind of weakness and kind of rolling over, but it just wasn't a convincing day today. For me, what was quite interesting was bonds, today's activity. So yesterday I was talking about the bond market surprised me with the strength, the weakness, the kind of the sell-off that we had last week. Normally I was looking for the bond market maybe to come back into the acquisition zone at the bottom of this blue professional bar and then kind of bounce from there, but it didn't. Kind of sunk back through this resistance point, the breakout point, and Monday's activity was a little amateur down bar right at these lows, and then today we bounced a little bit after an exhaustion selling pattern. So seemingly this level is holding for the time being, which is kind of good. The money flowing into bonds and out of equities and so on. But again, that kind of flip from one to the other is pretty slow, and I wouldn't exactly call today convincing in terms of topping out, but it was kind of weak. So let's look at today's activity. I'm actually going to answer a question that I got from Mario. Mario, I think, is from Italy, and so he's got a good question about exhaustion patterns at the beginning of the day, and today was a classic for those. So let me read you Mario's email. So, hi Barry, thanks for the videos and effort. I'm always expecting them. Just wanted to ask two questions, not able to answer with your videos. Wonder if you could give me a clue. So here we go. First question. Many times you say that you need to see the full liquidity of the day to think in a trend reversal. How do you know it? Just with the exhaustion volume signal? I'm asking this because sometimes you wait for another exhaustion volume signal, sometimes you wait for divergence after exhaustion, sometimes you wait for flush. I know you use the other indicators to think in a change of trend, but how do you know that the full liquidity of the day has been in place? Mario does actually say, apologies for my English, but Mario, your English is fantastic. A hell of a lot better than my Italian. So let's try and answer that, because today was a kind of classic. So 1500 tip bar chart, let's look at this. Yesterday we had one of these kind of exhaustion up bars. We closed at new highs, we're up in the 50s and 50s and so on. You can see at the end of yesterday we ended the day out with a pullback to end of trend sequence and exhaustion patterns, blue professional bars at the highs here. Note the exhaustion happened on the end of trend. When the exhaustion happens on the end of trend and not the left shoulder, I'm always saying wait for the second cyclical turn, and that's what we did. And at the second cyclical turn we got an even higher exhaustion signal here. This is up in the 20,000s, which is a big signal. Normally, ideally you'd get the exhaustion on the left shoulder. You get a divergent signal on end of trend, and then you're waiting for weakness after that. Because we got this pattern, on the end of trend, you just need to kind of delay a cyclical pattern before waiting for that exhaustion, and then we're waiting for breakdowns of supports. Now, because we had this exhaustion, what that shows is there's professional profit taking at the end of the day. They're using the strength of the market, all these blue professional bars at the end of the day, all that liquidity at the end of the day, they're using that to kind of get out. But let's think what the amateurs are thinking. The amateurs, your man on the street, is kind of coming home from work, checks his charts at the end of the day, and he sees the market kind of closes at the high. It's been a strong day. He's like, I have to get in, I have to buy something. So the first thing he's kind of doing is loading up his orders overnight, either for market orders at open, or there might be resting buy orders, whatever they might be, or he might wait to the first 30 minutes or so of the next day's trade in order to check that the market's still kind of going up, and then he's kind of all in. He'll kind of jump in. Now, I know some people are offended by that. They think that the amateurs aren't that naive, whatever. It's just a simplification I use about the market. It works for me, so hopefully it can help. And so when I see this kind of exhaustion pattern at the end of the day here, if we're looking for a reversal in that trend, I'm always looking for a little bit of a bump of volume, some kind of exhaustion buying volume first thing in the day, in order to show that basically everybody's all in. So what happens on the 1500 tip bar chart? The market opens, we have a little bit of weakness, we have a little bit of a double bottom here, support kind of holds, and then we get this final little bump in volume, exhaustion signal kind of comes in. So there it is, that's it. It doesn't work every time. It's like 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 kind of times it kind of happens. Just depends if on that day's kind of activity and particularly what's happened kind of pre the open. If we had a data release where we had this kind of bump in volume happens with a data release kind of earlier. I think we had that last week with the employment numbers, I think, before Friday's trade. So, but today's was a classic. We didn't have any kind of decent news pre-open. We didn't really have any news events today at all. And there's that exhaustion volume that kind of comes in. Now, better momentum will trigger the signal. I'm looking for something. I don't have in my mind a particular value that I'm looking for to mirror this or whatever. But you'll get some kind of signal, a momentum, better momentum signal, an exhaustion signal that comes in, and there it is. Comes in with a pro signal exit because we get a little bit of a cluster of blue professional bars right at the highs here. Bearish divergence comes in, and then the market kind of slinks away. So that's what I'm looking for. And the logic of it is that we've got this kind of flush of buying activity to kind of come in because of the strength of the market yesterday, and that's kind of amateurs mostly kind of coming in. The amateurs will be trading at the beginning of the day, the professionals are trading at the end of the day. Just again, simplification, kind of what's kind of going on. But that first 30 minutes, you'll have at the open, and then people just waiting and seeing, is it still strong? And as soon as the market kind of shows some strength, there's that kind of flush of buying activity, or that exhaustion activity that kind of comes in to signal that it's all over. Now, for the change in trend to take place, that's not enough for me. I need confirmation from everything kind of going on. So first of all, better pro-am is showing me the blue professional bars are active at the highs there, so the professionals are active kind of going on. I also like to see bearish divergence kind of come in. I actually jumped into this trade going short just before the bearish divergence had come out because I could see better momentum kind of coming back up, and it wasn't as strong as the previous exhaustion signal. So I could see that kind of bearish divergence pattern kind of lining up. As soon as that amateur bar kind of came in, the signal actually went off. So I was jumping in a little bit early, but it's good to wait for that. And it's also good to wait for breaks of support levels. So the support level on the 1500 kind of gets broken. We break into a downtrend kind of down here, but you can go to the lower time frames, so the 500 tip bar time frame here, for a break of that low support level that's kind of coming in again to show that that's moving into trend move that moves into a nice pullback to end of trend sequence down here that ended that first kind of leg down here in the 44s. So it's not just the exhaustion pattern, it's waiting for a bearish divergence signal. It's also waiting, making sure that we've got blue professional bars in there, and then looking for breaks to support levels. You can jump in earlier. I jumped in earlier. I was short at 49.75. So when I saw these amateur down bars, so we had blue professional bars coming into the first leg, and you can see at the second leg, the double top here. Look at all the amateurs kind of active at these highs. Wasn't Rambo patterns, but that was enough kind of amateur activity to show me that all of a sudden the professionals had been taking profits here. They were anxious to get short. Exhaustion selling down here just shows the strength of the selling going on here. As we come back up, it's a bearish divergence pattern. Amateurs active up here. And then when you go to the 4500 tip bar chart, it's kind of a classic, because with the 45 it was a beautiful pullback to end of trend. Cluster, huge number of blue professional bars. I think it's three there. Blue professional bars at that end of trend, bearish divergence over here, and then the market kind of sells off. So there we go. That's the logic behind the waiting the full liquidity of the day. Again, it doesn't happen every time, but it's a good kind of rule of thumb. Then Mario's second question. The other question is about the exhaustion volume signal. Once again, sometimes you look at the number of contracts when the signal is displayed, but why? Do you use it to know the strength of the movement, to find out liquidity? Do you think the number of contracts of exhaustion selling has to be similar to the exhaustion buying to think there's a change in trend? So yes and yes, really. So just looking back at the 1500 tip bar chart here, just rule of thumb for me on the 1500 tip bar chart, anything over about an 8,000 reading on the E-mini is showing some kind of exhaustion. So sometimes they're extreme like this. This one was about 11. I do look at the values of these. I do kind of check them just to see what's going on, to see whether this is likely to signal as a exhaustion or a flush pattern or whatever it might be. But I am looking for 8,000 above as a rule of thumb. But you don't have to use that necessarily, and each chart will be different. Whether if you're looking at the YM or if you're looking at another index, whatever it might be, it's going to be a different value. So that depends on the market. But for the E-mini, about 8,000 plus is kind of a good reading. And yes, when I'm looking for something on the flip side, so you can see here that the exhaustion buying ended up with this kind of 8,000, 10,000 type reading here. I'll be looking for those kind of similar signals on the way down in order to match that kind of selling volume. So that's, again, just a rule of thumb, something that's kind of matching the buying and selling, because that's what's happening. It's basically changing hands between people who want to be all in long and all in short, and kind of the net of that works out to be an 8,000 plus kind of swing either way. Sometimes it's a little bit larger than that, like here or here, but that in general is what I'm looking for. So there we go, Mario. Hopefully that was of use to you and everybody else, but today was kind of a nice example of that, and it was interesting that question kind of came in by email from Mario. So that was the trade of the day. Now I was actually, when we go to the 500 tip bar chart, because we had this pullback to end of trend sequence and I was looking for that exhaustion pattern, I was actually long kind of first thing 48.50, and then took profits at 50, a little bit shy of the high here, but that was fine. And when I saw that whole cluster of blue professional bars kind of come in, I was out for 1.5 on that first trade, and then got short again pretty early on this move. As soon as I saw those amateur bars, I was short at 49.75, which is kind of up here, and all I was looking for just was 2 points. I just wanted to stop trading. Again, for me, don't forget we got the time change not happening here in Hawaii, so it's kind of tough trading at 3 and 4 in the morning. And so I took profits a little bit early. So 2 trades, 3.5 points. I was happy with that, but it did go a lot further. Went down to 44s. Actually went to the original target at 45.75 quite easily, and in retrospect I should have just left it where it was. I shouldn't have been anxious to get out here. As soon as the breakdown of these support levels happened, you knew this thing was going to travel a little bit further, and it ended up on the 4500 tip bar chart being caught by this little sequence here. Now, just as a note, in terms of today's activity, we've not kind of finished up. This market hasn't bottomed properly. We've not seen blue professional bars kind of coming at the lows on the 4500 tip bar chart. We've seen the blue professional bars at the highs here. So for me, it's almost like the professionals are gaming the market up, and every time we kind of game the market up, they're using that opportunity to kind of get short. The market broke down here between 48 and 50, kind of here. When we come back underneath that kind of level, it's interesting that they're kind of coming in at these points here on the 1500 tip bar chart. Not been looking at this over the last little sequence, but again, it wasn't a classic kind of blue professional bars at the lows here. Yes, we've seen some kind of down here, but it's a little bit messy kind of going on here. It looks fairly weak to me. That was an exhaustion pattern happening here, but it doesn't look all that extreme. It looks like to me they've been gaming it up and just using that opportunity to kind of get out. So just some initial kind of thoughts, and I don't think this is all over, so it's going to be interesting to see what it does tomorrow. Anyway, I hope you traded well today, and looking forward to Wednesday. Short 49.75. Short 49.75. Just checking my stops and targets, and could be jumping in a little bit early, but we didn't have a nice, on the 500 tip bar chart, didn't have a nice pullback to end of trend sequence because support level kind of broke down below this breakout level. But looks like we're just lining up for another bearish divergence on 1500. We've had our exhaustion, and so we had exhaustion yesterday, bearish divergence, and we have full liquidity of the day, another exhaustion pattern here on 1500. It's been our pullback to end of trend. We had our bearish divergence here. We had a little bit of uptick above that, so it's not going to be a flush pattern, but it'll be another bearish divergence hopefully when this rolls over. So we've got a potential change in trend happening here. It's 9:33 AM, so we're in front of the window. And I'm jumping in early because what I need to see is a support level on 500 come in and get broken to the downside to give us a downtrend move. But because this left shoulder was made with all these blue professional bars here, and this little right shoulder here, or this head pattern here, all these amateur bars kind of coming in here, trying to break it up above 51, can't get there. So I suppose amateur down bars here, but break below 49s would be good. That also, I am definitely jumping in early. So let's see. Alright, here we go. We broke straight down to 49s. That was nice. Amateur down bar. Not particularly great, but we've had all our professionals in here, and there's bearish divergence coming. So bearish divergence, 1500 tip bar charts. Sometimes these happen, 3/4 of the time they happen at left shoulders, and we got to go pull back to end of trend. But 1/4 of the time they happen on a resistance or a support line. Resistance for bearish divergence, support for bullish. So that's kind of coming, so that is a potential change in trend. Should be nice. That'll line up with trends rolling over. So rainbow pattern here, so we might just find a little bit of support temporarily. So good. Alright, we had support coming on the 500 tip bar chart. I am thinking about moving my target. Yeah, I'm going to do it. 47.75. Just because, just for two, I've got 1.5 in the bag so far. This is 47.25. Down here, the low for the day. I could easily see us just having a bounce back, and we've got a support just come in on 500, and just a little break of that support level would take us into a downtrend. We've got minus 10,000 momentum, which is a decent reading, kind of selling down here, so anxious to get on board this move. I think this is a reversal today. Yes, that's what I'm afraid of. Blue professional bars kind of coming in, and we just retest back up to here. I'm just not interested in that. So let's hope for a clean breakdown, follow up this exhaustion selling with a decent move, and just be out for a couple. So come on, need to break this support to show that we're running into a downtrend. And while we're getting hung up around this support level here for so long, support's kind of in due 1500. I just want a little breakdown, but it's not giving me it. I suppose we just ran out of steam with this exhaustion selling for the time being. Hopefully we're not going to bust up. It looked like we were just going to sell down through this, but it's just interesting. Not doing anything. We need this break. Come on. Well, it's interesting. We got a little bit of a bounce up to 9.5, and then we came all the way. Here we go. We're coming through support on 500. Got a support here on 15. I'm just looking for 775. So break all of a sudden of that support level could be quick. Come on. 775. Just for a half. I know it's breaking down. No, it's breaking down into a downtrend. We're below support on 1500. And 72.25. There we go. So there's yeah. Whatever. I'm just interested in another two. So two trades, 3.5 points, and I'm done for the day. And it's 5 a.m. here Chicago time. So 5 a.m. Hawaii time, 10 a.m. Chicago time. That's enough for me. I think today could be a reversal, decent reversal day, but good enough. Just a follow up to that trade. So obviously out too early, and the original target at 545.75 has been hit. Nice little pro signal exit here. Blue professional bars kind of coming in there. So there's another two to be had quite easily, but just not for me today. So just heading back to bed.